Today's podcast is an HR Tech Spotlight episode. You know, the research tells us that workplaces with great cultures have higher productivity, are more innovative, and retain top talent. But for many, culture seems to be this, intangible, nearly impossible thing to measure or change. Or is it? Today, I'm excited to talk with Juan Betancourt, CEO of Humantelligence, here on the show. Juan is a top 100 HR tech influencer to follow. So if you don't follow him, what are you doing? And I'm sure you'll see why by the end of the show. With Juan, we'll discuss how they built the first agile culture management platform to help companies measure, operationalize, and transform culture. We'll talk about how to crack the culture code to really help improve collaboration, drive team performance, and hire for culture while building inclusivity throughout your organization. You're definitely in for a treat. Juan, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me here today, Vic. This has been great. Really excited about what we're going to cover in today's discussion.
Okay, sounds cool. So before we do, as always, let's cue that intro. All right, folks. So here we are back again with Juan Betancourt, CEO of Humantelligence here with our HR Tech Spotlight of the day. And I'm so glad that, Juan, that you're here to share with all of our listeners here what it is you do and your core background here. But before we kick things off, how about we take a moment to just let folks know who you are. Tell us, who you are, where you're located, what you do, all that fun stuff, Juan.
Yeah, so my name is Juan Betancourt. I'm the CEO of Humantelligence. We're based out of Miami, have employees remote across the country, probably about 10 cities in the US, a couple cities in Latin America where we develop our product with engineers. And we are an HR enterprise software platform, kind of like a Workday, SuccessFactors, or UKG, if you will, a lot smaller than those well-known brands. But we help companies measure, manage, and hire for culture. We're called the Culture Software, and we deliver culture as a service using psychometrics, AI, and data analytics to put real powerful tips at every level of an organization, from the individual team leader to the executive management team, to really manage the company better and towards a culture of intention to improve performance.
Indeed. And I was really, really amazed by, I think, just how well integrated a lot of the things that you all have to offer. And we'll dive into that here shortly. But real quickly here, before you do, before becoming CEO of Humantelligence, I think you have a really cool background. You've done plenty of things. Would love for you to please share your journey and the circumstances that led you to starting an HR tech company. That's not, I think, if folks know your background, that may not have been written in the stars, but would love to hear your journey here, Juan.
Yeah, so I'm one of those people who did not know what I was going to do at 22 when I graduated from Harvard College.
Really?
Unlike many of my colleagues, they knew exactly. So I would say I did much more of the zigzag. And so Humantelligence really is the culmination that takes a zigzag career across many industries and actually puts it all clear and focused as to, wow, Juan, you were really built to launch this company. And so part of that zigzag career is, Cuban-American guy from Maryland, went to public high school, worked really hard, graduated top of my class, then went to Harvard for college, worked at Procter & Gamble, the famous consumer products company, and brand management, did that for 3.5 years, went to Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania. From there, I went to, I'm 51, so we're talking 30 years ago. From there, I did stints at Reebok, doing just product management and general soccer strategy, to Puma, where I was running all of Puma marketing and operations, so number 2 to the CEO, but Puma, don't think it's Puma today. Puma went bankrupt, and when I went in, it was to relaunch the company.
Wow.
So they had gone from 10,000 to just 300 employees, and I was in Germany relaunching different countries like the US and Brazil and others. From there, I went to software with a company called Siebel Systems, small 110 person company, 8 million in revenue, and 1 year later, we were 12,000 people, and a year after that, 3 billion in revenue, fastest growth in a software company in history. They're basically a precursor to Salesforce CRM. From there, went back to the world of sports to a company called Decathlon. It's French for decathlon, like the sporting event. More sports than any company under one roof. So basically, big box retailer. I think like 37 brands. They were 200 billion in revenue, 300,000 employees around the world, 10 times bigger than Nike. And so outside the US, the best sports retailer and one of the best retailers, regardless of in sports or content. Managed north of France, became CEO of the Americas. And then after that kind of, let's say, first half of my career as just an executive in different types of companies, I became a headhunter. And so I was a partner at Heidrick & Struggles, a partner at Korn Ferry, about 4 years each. I also became my own firm and started my own search firm, focusing on finding CEOs and CFOs and other C-suite execs for portfolio companies of private equity firms. A fun fact is that I was kind of like the hottest, youngest executive search consultant and one of the most successful. So Donald Trump and The Apprentice found me, and I replaced George in the boardroom, and I was a guest cameo for 4 episodes in season 10, telling Donald Trump who to hire and fire on the show. That was kind of fun. And then after all those experiences, all seeming very different, I took my knowledge of hiring executives from executive search recruiting, my knowledge of well-run large companies and how culture is so important, and I built a platform taking the best of all those experiences and really upgrading the world of psychometrics, which we've all done for the last 50 years. But instead of it just being a one and done, not very actionable result, building a software platform that puts at your fingertips every day of the week in all of your tools at work, email, Teams, calendar, the insights from psychometrics off the cloud with AI to help everybody be a better version of themselves, every team being a better performing team, and every company being a better performing company. And it was only because I did that zigzag career, and it probably took 5 minutes to even say all that, gave me the insights to be able to launch a company that could do it in a very seamless, integrated way.
Yeah, it's interesting where life's journey takes us. And I think that, it's really through those collective experiences that we, can do the things that we do. And we are the people that, we are. And I think that's why I'm really excited about the topic for, today. I've titled it Cracking Like the Culture Code, but we're just going to talk about culture, man, because I can tell that we're going to start here and, maybe zigzag in our own way into a few other things. So, let's
can talk about my 2 kids.
Exactly, right. Let's start here. Just because you're in the business of transforming culture, I would love to hear your definition of what is culture and what do you feel that most people get wrong about it?
Yeah, and this has been a very kind of squishy, soft topic for 50 years in the world of business, right? We actually bring clarity to it. So before Humantelligence, many people mistakenly thought that culture was their vision or their mission statement or the benefits they give, that they let people work from home prior to COVID, obviously, that they let people, they give iPhones for free. That they do an engagement survey, a temperament survey, and see if people are happy or not happy. And they think that's all culture. All of those things are important things, including leadership and management. But that's not your culture. Your culture actually, and this is not our definition, we just came up with the fastest tool and psychometric test to measure for it. The culture definition that I'm about to give you is what PwC Katzenbach Center, one of the world institutes around culture and studying it, what Burson by Deloitte and what Accenture all agree on what culture is. We just built the first tool to measure it and manage it and hire for it. And that is, it's your people. So all of your people, okay, it's their psychology, their behaviors, their motivators, and then also the way they work. So it's 2/3 psychology, behaviors, motivators, and 1/3 the way they work. And it's a bottom-up thing. And all three of those consulting firms, PwC, Accenture, and Deloitte, agree that it's not top-down. Now, if you're a small company of 10 people and there's a CEO, it's basically a team.
Right.
Okay, team culture is defined by the leader of the team, right? Often. But if it's a 24,000 person company, you could get rid of the top 500 people and the culture probably won't change very much. We've all understood and heard how hard it is to change culture.
Right.
It's exactly for that reason. And there's not one culture at a company, okay? There might be a certain values they want to kind of gravitate towards, and that's what's on their website. But the behaviors and work styles of Coca-Cola in the US is very different than Coca-Cola in Brazil and Coca-Cola in Israel and Coca-Cola in Nigeria and Coca-Cola in Taiwan. And so even within the same company, the culture of a barista and Starbucks team at a store in Hialeah, Florida, near Miami, where it's all Latin customers and Latin employees, is going to be a completely different culture of experience than up in Boston or in Seattle. And so we are the first company to measure what we call BMW, which is all of what I just said in 3 letters, the behaviors, the motivators, and work styles of a team, of a group, of a division, of a company, and show visualization and insights that are useful and actionable every day.
That's pretty cool, because I think that the traditional approach to culture is that, hey, here are our company core values. Let's try to make everyone, abide by them or find themselves in our value. Memorize
it. T-shirts,
yes, the hats.
The hats, and do surveys every month to see how many people can regurgitate the 4 key values on the website.
Yeah,
that is, and by the way, the other mistake, the 2 biggest mistake is we have these 4 values on the website thing. And by the way, this guy named Don Sol, former Harvard Business School professor, now MIT professor, he actually researches this stuff. He came to the conclusion with data that of the 500 companies in the Fortune 500, like 87% share the same 4 values.
I remember that. Yes.
No matter what industry, right? And then he found that there's no correlation of those 4 values with what the companies feel the company actually represent culturally. So actually the coefficients are almost negative in all of those cases.
So the core values have nothing to do with how people feel about the culture.
Yeah, so that's one fallacy. The other one is these engagement surveys, right? Where they ask people if they're happy or not, if they're going to recommend the company to a friend, if they like their boss. The reality is Microsoft and Apple have completely different cultures. If you ever know anybody from those companies, work in those companies, use their products, I mean, it's from like the DNA of those companies, you couldn't find 2 more different companies. That famous commercial of Apple and Microsoft with the guy that built.
I'm a PC, right? I'm a Mac. Yeah.
Both those companies do engagement surveys all the time, and it turns out they have the exact same results, which they have the same culture. They have 75% of people super engaged, love the company, recommend to a friend, they're not going to leave. They have 20% of people who are like, it's a job, not happy, not sad, it pays the bills, and 5% who are miserable, they're going to quit tomorrow, right? How does that explain that they're the same company culture? It doesn't. There's no similarity at all. And so these engagement surveys, people are following false positives or false results on that. You could have, like I worked at Siebel Systems, one of the most successful companies in the world, culture, an engagement survey, we all were miserable. So miserable people, but company going like this. You can also have people at a company who are really happy and the company going terrible. And so there's never been a proven correlation of happiness on the job and performance of the company. You could have all servers at a McDonald's chain of 10 franchise McDonald's. The owner of the franchise might give free iPods to everybody or iPads, and everybody's really happy, but maybe they're not good at their job at working at McDonald's. So they're not service oriented. Well, so who cares if they're happy? Obviously you want both. You want the company to succeed, you want happy employees, but just asking employees if they're happy or not is just so far from what's driving performance.
And you know what's really interesting about that one is that I think that perhaps in some circles saying that engagement is detached from culture may come off a little controversial, because culture has been
very controversial.
been the de facto way of how we perceive culture, because maybe it's easier to measure. So to those folks who may kind of say, hey, engagement matters, right? What's the difference between assessing for engagement and assessing or analyzing culture? And I think that you were really getting at that, but I would love to dive a little bit deeper.
Yeah, and that's a challenge we have, because a lot of people say, "Well, I invested all this money, like you're calling my baby ugly." Well, no, you should still do engagement surveys, right? It is good to know precisely which managers are not liked at all and are destroying culture of a team, and which ones have raving fans as employees, and what employees are at risk of leaving the company. You do want to do these engagement surveys, but just don't conclude that is the culture of the company. It's going to help you improve performance, right?
I see.
There's this whole other side. Look at an engagement survey as a diagnostic tool. Like, you go to the doctor and they say you're sick, but they don't know what you have. And so you're not being engaged, you're not working hard because you're sick. We actually give the prescription and the understanding of why you're sick, what's leading to you not being happy at your job, what's leading to your team not performing, what's leading to you not getting a bonus or a commission, so that you can improve your job, the team can improve, and the company can improve. So it's really like engagement surveys just really scratch the surface.
Like the tip of the iceberg.
Doesn't really give you the why.
Mm.
It's kind of like, here's what's happening, but not why it's happening.
Yeah.
We're under the iceberg of why things happen, where you can then use it to make changes to get people to be really engaged. Because although I don't prescribe and only doing engagement surveys, our tool actually really does drive better engagement. If everybody is not just aligned from a skills and resume perspective, but also from a who they are perspective on where they fit and where they add culture, if it's going to be to add diversity of thought, or where they add a different, unique perspective, that leads to better performance. So we're really on a more powerful transformational understanding of an organization.
Yeah, and this is exciting stuff, right? I'm trying to contain it on it, because you're hitting on, hiring for culture fit, diversity of thought. Okay, let's reel it back in. We'll get to a few of those, but for folks who may not be used to or understand the concept of culture as a service, and I would understand why some folks may not, because you were the pioneers and putting this out there, help people understand what culture as a service means, and how that is different from maybe a traditional model of doing a culture management. Yeah,
so up until now, culture has been this kind of define it at the website with 4 values, right? It's very stagnant. We have a culture and we want to keep this culture forever. The reality is, everybody's heard of this term of agile management. Well, there's a reason why agile management is taking over everything. And why the way Jack Welch ran GE would not work today, because it was too stuck. Today, markets, products, and services, because of technology and information and competition, change so fast. You need to be an agile company, period. Every company claims to be agile now as one of their cultures. It's just part of doing business, like being profitable. You need to be agile. It's very rare for a company to be able to set it and forget it in terms of products, services, the way they run, and their culture.
That's true.
The best example of that is COVID. Any company, any CHRO, chief people officer, CEO, who really believe that culture is a set it and forget it thing, when COVID hit in March of 2020 in the shores of the United States,
that was a wake-up call.
Wake-up call. If you actually kept the same culture from 2 years ago to today, you'd be out of business.
Yeah,
you're literally. Culture, and every team and every company has changed their culture on how to work together, the ways they work, on what it looks like on teams and how they work cross-functionally and hybrid, remote, understanding each other, right? So the role of the employee versus the company, and how it was like boss subordinate, now it's equals.
Yeah, teams.
The job market. So culture changes, and at Procter & Gamble, which is one of the best run companies in the world, where I was blessed to work for 5 years, we did what a lot of companies now do. At the end of the year, you review your business, your area, your function, your division, your geo, and you define what your next year's objectives, goals, strategies, and measures are, and the action items, and how to measure and track it. But when you change every year, and it was like a month-long process, and every year you change all these things. Well, if you don't change your culture to support those changes, you're going to have a conflict. And so culture should be on that yearly business review to what we need to do now and what's changing, so that every person on the team, in the division, in the function, in the company, knows how the culture now needs to support that change in strategy. And it is an annual review that would have to take place. And, the smaller you are as a company, startup going from 1 to 10 million, probably bigger changes in culture are needed. There's a fallacy out there that a lot of startups fail because they couldn't maintain the culture. We're actually finding with data, it's converse. It's the inverse of that. The CEOs who keep hiring themselves and want to be in every interview and continue to hire from 1 to 10 to 100 to 1,000 employees, it's not because they can't be in every interview. They're still actually hiring more of people they like, and it's not leading to diversity of thought. And the complexities of a startup actually become much more that you need diversity of thought, and having the same way of doing things, typically more innovative and creative culture when you're startup, actually leads to your failure a few years later. And so it's having culture, understanding where you're going as a strategy, and the culture of intention to support that strategy, and a platform like ours, which allows you to see that with data all through those decision points.
So, there's lots of tools out there that people may be familiar with, DISC, Myers-Briggs, like all of those things. So I would love for you to help explain kind of what is the difference between your typical assessment product and Humantelligence.
Perfect. Yeah, so all those other assessment tools that people probably are familiar with, predictive index rankers, Myers-Briggs, MBTI, blah, 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 there's like 100. They're from the old world of just a tool for self-awareness. They didn't build a software platform that integrates into the daily use case, daily workflows of all employees. So for example, for Coca-Cola to give it to 10,000 people on a Monday and having 10,000 people using it for collaboration through email the next day, or team leaders, 2,000 of those 10,000 people being leaders, getting insights to be better leaders and be better effective teams, and understanding their culture and their strategies, the culture to support the strategy the next day. That would take any other assessment tool or combination of tools 20 to 30 years and tens of millions of dollars. We did that for like $200,000 in 24 hours.
Wow.
I mean, it's a scale and a transformational event that is like going from horse and buggy to a Tesla. We are the Tesla of assessments.
I love it.
Everything else out there really is a horse and buggy.
No, and I think that's important to kind of to share like the difference there, that it's not those like assessments aren't good, don't work. I'm sure they have like their space, but is it integrated, and can it help you bring in that diversity of thought into your workplace at the speed of technology these days? And I think that's like really where we're out with this. So I think now I would love to almost walk us through what it feels like to be a Humantelligence customer, right? And having all of these cultural insights at your fingertips, because, you talked about, hey, culture should be something that's reviewed kind of on the same way a strategic, plan is viewed on a yearly, even more frequent kind of basis. But I don't know if organizations really have the tools, the data to really have meaningful discussions around it. So it sounds like if you're a customer, that's what you have. So would love for you to walk us through what it feels like to be a customer here.
Perfect. And so we have like 3 or 4 key modules.
Okay.
I'll talk through each one. Can I do a quick screenshot when I talk about each of the 4?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll put it up here on the screen for folks.
We're going to talk about 4. I'm going to talk about the leadership and team culture and team effectiveness. That's one of the best-selling products. That's what one of the 3 largest consulting firms in the world, which I can't say yet, is going to actually resell our product for. And it's what one of the 5 biggest software companies in the world is actually starting to resell our product for. That's leadership and team effectiveness and team performance. I'll show you that. I'll show you EQ Everywhere, which is kind of a collaboration tool that plugs into your communication programs, and it's a great inclusion platform, as in DEI, right? Everybody has a lot of investment in time and diversity and equity, all both very important. But what about inclusion? What about every 2 people understanding each other before they write an email, go to a meeting? We've done that. I'll show you how it can be used for hiring. And then at the company level, how it can be used for understanding performance. Okay, so cool. This will show for behaviors, motivators, and work energizers, the culture visually. You can also get the insights here where it'll show you your 2 top dominant traits as a leader. You can print all this out, download it. The strengths, the weaknesses of your behaviors, of your motivators, your work energizers. So in this case, my team, 66% change-oriented, Obviously, we might want to fill in the gaps here if we're trying to hire for culture of diversity of thought, some cautious people. I can see the information as a diversity chart as well, where I can see where most people play. If I can onboard people better, if Dan is new and he's going to be working a lot with Alexis, I might want to know and have them each know that one's really reflective, one's outgoing, or in the case of this person, Scott, he's very freeform, does everything new and different, and asks a lot of questions. And Lucas is completely opposite, very cautious. Quality control, they might conflict. So it's great for onboarding, for hiring. You can see the information as a bar chart. You can also see, for example, in terms of motivators, we're 63% innovative. And this, by the way, is data from 2 years ago. And then work energizers, 85% creative. Now, one of the things we ended up doing was using a target culture to actually see what a future culture, what we want and where we are today, and getting a roadmap of the gaps of that. So we're only 19% of where we had to go. And we use this tool to show where were, like here, we're very decisive as a team and where we wanted to go. And then each of the employees gets a roadmap of how to change their behaviors to be more aligned with our culture of intention. So that's the first kind of product use case that leaders get to use, and they can see their employees. And then the second one is two people can use it in looking at a network. Let's say I'm gonna go work with this guy named Dan Johns. I can find Dan's in a 10,000 person company, see his personas. These are out of 20, his top 3, how similar or different we are. I could turn on a collaboration tip where I actually can get tips every week, 1 or 2 sentences on working with Dan, and him gets one from me on where we're similar, where we're different. And I can see a side by side of Dan and I that we're 35% similar. It'll highlight the top 2 similarities, the top 2 differences. And if I want to go through the details, I can see all the different areas and all the advice of where we're different or similar. The third one is hiring. So you can use all this information to get insights around a role or a team and hire for that team. So a quick applicant tracking system with the different people, and using these insights so that Connie, for instance, if you see here the column that says manager and the column that says team, Connie is only a 40 with the manager and a 36
with the,
36 with
team.
the team.
Yeah.
And so usually this person, Connie, would not make it through the interview process because they're not a great fit with the manager and team. But many times hiring more of the same is not the right answer. You want diversity of thought. And so for this target culture that we had shown you earlier, you can actually use this information to hire Connie, because she's actually a 73 despite these 2 low marks on manager and team. She's a great fit. So that's the third way. And then the last way is getting real insights around an entire company. So 300 people or 400 people or 3,000 people, seeing the group culture, okay, where you can see the majority of 300 people, where their dominant traits are, where their weaknesses are, what personas explain the entire company. These are kind of like your directional high-level culture. And then also seeing comparisons where you can look at your high performers and your low performers. So let's take a sales team, looking at the high and low performers, and you can see what high performers look like. Most of these high performers in sales, their behaviors are decisive and outgoing. Low performers are actually opposite and deliberate and reflective. So you can go through and see what actually explains performance for behaviors of salespeople, motivators, and work energizers, and then use that for hiring. So so on the second use case is the collaboration tool. It's been integrated to all communication tools like Outlook, Gmail, Slack, Microsoft Teams. So if I'm going to write to somebody, I click on this talent profile button up here. I can see that comparison. I can see tips for communicating with that person, likes to ask questions, challenge assumptions. He doesn't like ultimatums. So instead of telling him I want his feedback by tomorrow, I'll ask him by when. It gives me tips on how to motivate him, tips on his learning styles, right? Personalization around learning. So that's a really powerful use case where 10,000 people got a link at Coca-Cola on a Monday. And on Tuesday, 10,000 people are using this tool for better communication, better inclusion, better collaboration. And then as a meeting, I can go in and look at a meeting and to click the other button. And in that meeting, it'll tell me through AI for these 12 people, it'll surface the key things around these 12 people, unique to these 12 people around that meeting and how best to participate or manage it. And then different tips around people in the meeting. For instance, these are the 2 cautious people and the 3 reflective people. If I want to hold space and run a meeting, I might want to ask them for their feedback. So all really powerful things that you can do as a customer of Humantelligence. I hope that wasn't too confusing.
Not at all. That was amazing, actually. And I think that, the thing that jumps out at me is that the insights are built into, the flow of work. That's always been a common buzzword, now that folks use. But I think having it built right into your email, right, before you talk to somebody, I think that's the
game changer.
Exactly.
There's 100 assessment tools, personality tests, whatever you want to call them, and they're all accurate. Like some just do behavior, some just do motivators, some do both. But the game changer is none of those companies are software companies. They did not build a platform to solve a problem. We built a platform to plug into all of your workflows at a company so that you don't have to go to a folder or a PDF or do a workshop with a consultant to explain the results. These are tips, quote unquote, at your fingertips to make you a better version of yourself every day and give you the emotional intelligence, the EQ at your fingertips to perform better with others on teams or through communication.
That's awesome. I think that, as you said, that is the game changer, where you don't have to remember to think about how this person may receive this or the culture, their background or way of thinking. It prompts it for you so that you just become a better human being, right?
We give snackable insights, like little
snackable,
snacks,
awesome.
Right? So we took workshops, like I didn't want to show you, but we have a culture playbook where it's a 12-hour workshop that you would usually do with a consultant that we bite up into little micro doses, and we give it to 12 months. One weekly meeting, the manager just spends 30 minutes once a month, and it takes a piece from a workshop. So they don't feel like they're doing a workshop, but over 12 months, they're actually doing a workshop. And it's snackable, or some people like to use the word, they're microdosing culture insights as a leader, as a team, and as individuals. Like, you're at a consulting firm, you're going to be working every 3 months on a different project with different team members. Imagine you just click on their names, and every week you get a little insight in your email that you can snack on to improve that collaboration and understanding. That's inclusion, where you understand everyone, where you're using that muscle memory to say, wait, this person's different. They probably think differently than me, work differently than me, behave differently, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong. I'm going to get used to just adjusting and being agile as a human, as a leader, and as a team, based on all of our glorious differences, right? I think differences are something to rejoice in, and companies that can manage that the best and be more agile in leadership, agile in team effectiveness, and agile as each individual are going to be the best run companies and the most performing.
Absolutely. I agree. And, we've been talking about kind of culture within teams and how you relate with each other. But you did hit upon about hiring for culture, which is also another big, aspect here. And I think that, we talked about this in a previous conversation, but when you only have a resume, I feel like there's so much missing from the hiring process when you're only relying on that. Can you talk to us about using a platform like this for hiring, and if you have any thoughts or perspective of just hiring just based upon like a resume?
Yes, a lot of perspective and data. So and remind me also to talk about so there's 2 parts of hiring, and we'll talk about the first part, which is hiring for the IQ or the resume, and how EQ can really add to that. The other thing we'll talk later, I hope you bring it up, is hiring for fit always cloning what you already have, or it's adding culture or doing something
diversity.
different?
That's my next question. Don't worry, I got you.
Well, on the first one, hiring for the resume is very useful in white collar roles. You want someone who's going to be a CEO or a CFO. You want to make sure they went to good schools and they've worked as a CFO. So for 30% of the jobs out there that make 80,000 and above or 100,000 above, the resume is key in your first filter. However, once you get to the 50 or 60 resumes, and now with LinkedIn, all these job boards, maybe the 200 resumes that could do the job.
Oh, yeah.
There you want to actually add another filter, which is not through interviewing, because interviewing leads to bias. Interviewing leads to, do they sound like me, look like me? So racial bias, cultural bias in terms of what region of the country you are, accent bias, male, female bias, right? You name the bias. And people end up hiring, like, we've all been there. Hey, everyone, we interviewed 5 finalists today. Who did we like the most? You go with who you like the most.
Who do you like the most? Yes.
Crazy. Like, who would you want to sit and drink a beer with after work? How's that relevant to the job? And so the problem of the last 80 years of hiring, or probably even longer, is that people hire who they like, and there's no data other than the biased interview, which is not, it's 100% subjective.
Yeah.
Now, if you add culture fit and insights around BMW, behaviors, motor work styles, that are data-based, that are scientific, in a tool like ours, without the bias, you can start to hire for either culture fit, being complementing what you already have on the team, or complementing the manager, okay, or cloning what already works. So some roles out there, the other 70%, which are not resume-based, which are hourly wage jobs that you don't care where they went to school or if they finished high school, at McDonald's, at Subway, at a manufacturing plant. Those 70% of hourly wages that explain the majority of the world's economy, it's not about the resume. It's about culture fit. It's about the behaviors, the motor work styles. Okay. And that's 99% of success.
Yeah.
Even in the white collar jobs, it's only 30%. 70% success is what we measure. And so our platform is great for either white collar, blue collar, and anything in between to lead to better performance or more diversity of thought. And so it is used. We have a great case study with Ashley Furniture, blue collar workers. I mean, these are like truck drivers who go in, they get there's 20,000 employees, 10 manufacturing sites, and 100% turnover. They're losing tons of money a year. They went in, tested our tool, and it showed that we could predict who would stay and who wouldn't, and they put it in play. And sure enough, they got rid of 8,000 interviews a month.
Wow.
Think about that, like 80,000 a year.
Yeah.
They ended up getting rid of 40% reduction in turnover. So from 20,000 people to, like, let's say 10,000 generally, and they save between $8 and $10 million a year, and simply by giving our assessment to people on the manufacturing store shop floor to take it, and then they would do a weightlifting test after they got a green. So that's the power of a tool like this, right?
That's amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think that you hit that second point there, that people have questions around, hey, do we hire for cultural fit or cultural diversity? And I think it depends on the kind of business that you're running and the type
so
of
unique. So your business, to your strategy,
maturity,
to what you want. You can clone what works, like Ashley cloned people in manufacturing that stayed longer. Okay. And same with call center. We have a huge call center company, I can't say their name, that does the same, right? So for certain roles, you do want to just clone what works. You don't want call center agents all doing whatever they want. Like they're all being timed, they got a certain, script to read, right? So that's cloning. You also want, at some executive level roles, team roles, to guarantee diversity of thought. You don't want a consulting firm team to all be the same in the way they think, right? Whether it's all 5 white men at 40 years of age, or a black, a white, Hispanic, Asian, or Filipino kind of thing. You want diversity of thought. And then the other way you can hire is we don't care about cloning or diverse thinking. Humantelligence, as an example, you saw that we were really innovative, creative, and change oriented.
Yeah.
We needed to be more stable, predictive, and structured. So based on our strategy, we hired for that. So that's not looking at cloning, and it's not looking at diversity of thought. It was just looking at what's our strategy, and let's hire for that. Yeah. And within that, you want diversity of race as well, right? And ethnicity. So in an ideal world, you bring those perspectives as well. But people are losing sight of diversity of thought is actually the most superseding diversity you can have.
Yeah. And it's Juan, I just think there hasn't been a really good way to view, assess, or even see what kinds of thoughts or ways of thinking do we have, what kinds of ways of thinking that the people that we're hiring bring to us. And I think that's a really, really exciting premise in this time of like, hey, let's push for diversity. But I think having that data there at your fingertips. I mean, it's very apparent at times where you have those gaps, I'm assuming, right?
It's very clear. And although it's intimidating and scary for some leaders to know they're about to hire someone that the interview wasn't like finishing each other's sentences.
Yeah.
Like usually you want to go with the one that's like, oh my God, they're just like me.
Yeah.
But at least now you also see the data that shows why it's important to hire someone different. And it'll show you how to minimize that friction. So it makes leaders better leaders in that they can onboard better. They can reduce the friction because in the past, when you did hire people that didn't think like you, it led to a blow up.
Causes
this
friction.
Tool allows you to hire for that, but then also manage for it better too. So it really makes every leader a better leader, every team a more effective team, and being able to tackle more complexity, i.e. being more agile as a leader and as a team.
Awesome. Well, Juan, this has been great. I'm so excited that, I've had you on the show. And here as we wrap up, we just got a few questions that are fun, love to ask and love to get your perspective on. So here's the first one. If I were to offer you a billboard to put a message or takeaway about culture from today, what would that billboard have?
Culture as a service is coming. Don't wait for it. Start measuring it.
All right, folks, you heard it's coming. Don't wait for it. Measure it. Awesome. And I think that, with the tools that are available today, platforms like yours, that is a lot more tangible than it was or that seemed even 10 or 15 years ago. So that's exciting as well. What's something you're actively learning or maybe you're actively looking forward to? I'm always curious to kind of see how people are growing like themselves, or if you just have something fun that you just can't wait to do.
Is this human intelligence related or me as a human being?
You as a human being, yeah.
Yeah, so I think spirituality has really entered my life in the last 10 years, and I just get deeper and deeper reading books, meeting people. And so my connection with the universe and how I'm connected with all things and all people and trying to optimize my vibration within the context of others and how I can affect the vibration of the planet through people really is my singular focus outside of work and my own family, which, by the way, in that self-awareness and learning about my own energy, vibration, impact on others, I was able to shift things to actually call in my soulmate, my wife, and my 2 children. And so that alone has been a miracle, if you know me. And so I'm on that journey of spirituality, and it's changed my personal life. And I think also through work will transform billions of people down the road.
I love to hear it, man. That's awesome. That's beautiful. Last thing, what's the best piece of career advice you were ever given, or something that comes to mind there?
I think knowing your true north and knowing how you vibrate, your own behaviors, motivators, work styles, kind of what we measure, like knowing that earlier in life and aligning that to different industries and trying those out is the best thing you can do for yourself. Trying to do what your peers are doing or what it makes sense from where you went to school or what your parents do is going to lead to a lot of pain and suffering. We all have a purpose. It's finding that purpose early. And so it's just the confidence to pursue it, even if it looks, smells, and tastes different than what you thought you would want or need. Because what we think we want in our careers is very different than what we need as humans. It's the same with relationships, right? How many people start dating for what they think they want in life? They've always had this image of what they wanted as a partner.
Right. And then they learn a little bit more.
20 years later, you're like, well, wait a second, what I need is this. And so I think that lesson can be applied to both work and personal. It's the most powerful lesson in life. And I think when evaluating career and love, it's funny, I think it's the same filter. The hardest thing in life is to go from being in your head to being in your heart. And if you can make decisions and see the world through your heart, you will get to the end game and where you're supposed to be in happiness a hell of a lot quicker. The only challenge with that is society, community, at least the US, the only way you get ahead in the first 30 years is being in the head.
That's so true, man.
When you get the memo on your 30th birthday, not what bar we're meeting at, but the memo from God or the universe or the government and business saying, hey, now in your career and in life, in your personal life, you've actually got to be in your heart, because being the best leader and being the best executive is actually being here, not here. And you don't get that message and nobody's telling you. And that's the biggest like aha moment I had, much later than 30. So that's my advice for everyone listening today.
This is awesome. Come for like the data, you leave with the heart message here. I love it, Juan. I love it. This has been so great. I think from just everything that you all like are doing at Humantelligence, it's no surprise to me how quickly it's caught on here. So if people want to find out more, like get in contact with you and your team, where should they go? How should they reach out?
Yeah, they can go to either the website, www.humantelligence.com. Now remember, there's no IN. We combined two words, so we got rid of the middle IN. And then you could also just write directly to me at Juan, my first name, at humantelligence.com. Happy to respond directly to any comments, questions. No hate mail, please.
No. Oh, awesome. Well, I am sure that is far from the case. And I have had a blast on this podcast. I hope all you who are listening have had a blast as well. Juan, thanks again for being on the show. And if you're listening and you'd like to hear more from Juan and his team, we'll leave some information here at the end. And with that, Juan, we will cue the outro. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Vic.